Okay, let's learn about some trigonometry. So what is trigonometry? Well, the trig part, the tri part, we're talking about triangles, the shapes of triangles here, and then the metry part in trigonometry, we're talking about the measure. So basically, we're just going to be measuring triangles, and what we have is three trig ratios, and the three trig ratios are what we call sine, cosine, and tangent. They're really just made up words. Sine, cosine, and tangent are basically ratios. And what is a ratio? A ratio is a comparison of one number divided by another number. For example, Shaquille O'Neal made, 2 out of 7 shots. Michael Jordan made 8 out of 9 shots. We're just comparing two numbers. Well, in sine, cosine, and tangent's case, we're comparing two sides, the lengths of two sides. And so the first trig ratio is what we call sine, and that stands for opposite over hypotenuse. So basically, we're comparing these two sides, the opposite side, wherever that is, divided by the hypotenuse side. Cosine has that abbreviation COS, and they're comparing two different sides. They're always going to compare the adjacent side over the hypotenuse side, and tangent is always going to compare the opposite side divided by the adjacent. So let's take a look at these two pictures here. Notice we have this little stick figure, and that kind of represents where you are seeing the triangle from. So the perspective of if you're kind of sitting at that angle or standing at that angle, how do we describe that side? Well, that's the opposite side to you. This side in here is what we call the adjacent side. And notice the hypotenuse is always going to be across from the 90-degree angle. And if you take a look at this picture down in here, notice if we're still seeing the triangle from a different perspective, notice this lower angle in here. Notice now this is the opposite side to you. This is the adjacent side to you, and the hypotenuse is once again always opposite the 90-degree mark. So that's going to be really important when we start evaluating sine, cosine, and tangent. We have to know, we have to really pick an angle of where to stand at or sit down at and see the triangle from that perspective. Okay, let's give it a shot here with this example. So what we're going to try to do is find these 6 ratios in here. Well, notice these 3 are sine, cosine, and tangent of A. What does that mean? Well, that means take the perspective of A and try to give us the two numbers associated with sine of A. Well, sine is opposite over hypotenuse, so that's going to be 3 divided by 5. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse, so that's going to be written as 4 over 5. And what do you know about tangent? Tangent is the opposite side relative to where we're standing, divided by the adjacent side. So that's going to be 3 divided by 4. It's really that easy. You have to just really memorize the 3 words in here, sine, cosine, and tangent, and really understand that we're just comparing two sides. Opposite over hypotenuse, that's sine. Adjacent over hypotenuse, that's cosine. Tangents opposite over adjacent. So let's do the sine of B. When we do the sine of B, well, we have to draw a little stick figure at B. So I'm going to do that down here. And so if I'm seeing the triangle from B's perspective, what is the sine of B? Well, now it's the opposite divided by hypotenuse. That's 4/5. What is cosine? Cosine is the adjacent side to B divided by its hypotenuse, so that's 3/5. And the last one is the tangent of B. Tangent of B is the opposite side divided by the adjacent side, so that's going to be 4/3. Well, I'm just about ready to wrap it up, but I just want to kind of preview a little pattern that we can take notice here, which might come up in the future. Take notice that the sine of A and the cosine of B are exactly the same. take notice that the cosine of A and the sine of B are exactly the same. And with tangent, they're not exactly the same, but we do have a relationship here. It turns out the tangent of this angle A and the tangent of this angle B, they're what we call reciprocals. So that's a little future pattern that we may be discussing in future lessons. Kind of keep that in mind. All right? See you soon.